Good morning. Hey there, everyone. Welcome. It's Miss Julia here, back for another creativity time. My fifth creativity time of this week, so I'm really excited we made it to Friday. I'm going to go ahead and let folks just start to join us. If you are getting settled, go ahead and take a peek on the side over here. We have a whole comment bar section, give you a little understanding of what we're going to be learning today. It's Kumi what? Which is going to be about Kumihimo, and that is an ancient Japanese braiding technique. So if you are just learning about this craft for today, you can go ahead and click on the link that is for our Creativity Time webpage, and you can see all of our supplies that you'll need for this craft, and you'll also see all the videos that we've been doing throughout the week so that you can catch up, continue the crafting, add more crafts to your repertoire. So we're hoping to log this for, the next few weeks at this point. So I see some more friends are joining us. I would love to hear, one of my favorite things every day has been finding out where everybody has been coming from. So if you wouldn't mind telling us where you're crafting from today, I think it brings the world a little closer than, being out there and in a safe way. We want to make sure everyone's creating and having community in a safe way. So that's why we have creativity time for everybody to join in, find a fun technique, and of course, see what other folks are doing too. So let's use that comment bar today. If you guys wouldn't mind letting me know where you're coming from. Got a few more friends still joining us. So welcome. It's Miss Julia here from the Handwork Studio, and if you're here, we are from the Philadelphia area. Today I am in my home studio. Awesome, I see some returners this week, which I'm so excited. I've been loving all the photos that folks have been sharing with us. I've been seeing all sorts of leprechaun catapults and wonder knitting variations on the tube knitters, so please keep all those pictures coming. I think it's amazing what you guys have been able to come up with, and my goal is just to give you the base and use it as a jumping off point. So you guys are the ones that are the artists, and you can use your creative brains to come with all sorts of different ways to get the same end results. So as we are filling up a little bit more, I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that we are going to be learning Kumihimo today. And usually the answer or the response when people hear Kumihimo, they go, Kumi what? And they look at me, and then I explain that this is a really cool technique. It's an ancient technique that originated from Japan, and it has a lot of modern uses as well. So, and it's very accessible. So all the crafts that we're trying to do in these creativity time videos are trying to use materials that you can easily find in your home, or source, easily or inexpensively at a craft store. So again, if you are just joining us, you can go ahead and check out the link that is in the comments section. That will take you over to our webpage that has all our supply lists over there. All right, so it looks like we are ready to get started. As I mentioned, I am just right outside of Philadelphia in my home studio. That is where the Handwork Studio is based out of, more specifically in Narberth, Pennsylvania, an amazing community that has an amazing efforts of really helping all the small businesses over there. And our brick and mortar is run year-round out of Narberth with camps and classes and workshops and private lessons and you name it. It is a bustling hub of creativity, and in the summer months we actually expand up and down the mid-Atlantic. We run camps really from New York down to Virginia, so some of you might have been to some of our camps. We often are in independent private schools or universities in those regions, and we teach all sorts of different programming throughout the summer. And we recently just a virtual training platform this year, which is called Handwork Academy, and that was developed specifically for educators and after-school and summer camp programmers to implement our award-winning fiber arts programming into their own programs. Fiber arts is actually the roots of the Handwork Studio, but recently we have shifted into really defining our passion as learning and teaching through making. And we are covering from sewing to baking, woodworking, and building. We believe it's a fundamental and essential right to have access to learning these skills. So we are thrilled to be able to offer these 30-minute lessons to really anyone that wants to log in and watch us. So I will also mention that all these videos will be logged after I'm done recording today. So if you miss anything, if I'm moving a little too fast, if you still need to collect your materials, just go ahead and you can grab these videos probably, right after I'm done recording off of Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel with a huge library of all sorts of different crafting techniques. So if you are hungry for creating, our YouTube channel is a great resource. And of course, our website as well will host all of our videos. So lots of places to keep the creativity alive. But for right now, I'm excited that we're going to be able to do this together. I really am, would love for you guys to ask questions along the way. I'm getting better at I'm a one-man show or a one-lady band over here, so I am going to try to work on reading the comments, slowing it down, and really making sure you guys are going to understand each steps of the process. All right? So let's get started. Enough babbling from me. All right, so as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to be teaching you one of my favorite techniques, which is called Kumihimo. Kumihimo. If you Google it, you will find lots of information about Kumihimo. In modern times, you might see it as friendship bracelets or, excuse me, loom weaving. So you might see often some examples out there that are on these large looms. This is a foam disc right here. This is a Kumihimo disc. And what it will do is it will make this rope. And this rope was actually really important to be made back in ancient times. We're talking like 600 AD, way older than me. And what they were using it to do is to help tie clothing together. It was decorative, it was functional. So if you think about rope and how it could use to pull things and hold things, that was actually what Kumihimo was used for. And what Kumihimo actually means in Japanese is it's gather threads. And the way Kumihimo is done is actually just by weaving, a very simple, flip-flopping of threads, which is what I'm going to show you today, how it's done. And almost anybody can do this. I would say ages 5 and up, easily, certainly with some adult assistance. So I highly recommend making this a group effort, family effort. There's nothing better than families creating together. Brothers, sisters, cousins, whomever's hanging out safely together, I really recommend that you do this in a group. Okay, and what I have here is one of the original, sorry, I know I'm going a little old school here on paper. This is an original Kumihimo loom. I know this looks quite daunting. You can see that there's a circle at the top. It's a wooden structure. And then there's these bobbins, all these little circles that are hanging at the bottom, which holds the thread that they use to start to make basically rope in these types of designs. Okay. Some of you might know Kumihimo as gimp or plastic lace or lanyards. The box stitch or the barrel stitch, if anyone is from summer camp, I know you're probably like nodding your head, yeah, and you might see like their keychains or they go around your neck and they hold, maybe the whistle, the lifeguard whistle. So I have found in my travels as the craft lady, we've been all over from like Texas to Colorado. I even went to Korea and taught a class with a friend that was teaching English over there. I have found that gimp or plastic lanyards have a million different names depending on the region you're from. The strangest one I've heard is called boondoggle. So if you are hailing from that, you're familiar with what what plastic lanyard lace or GIMP is called. I would love to hear what you guys call it in your region. I think that's always intriguing to see, how things differ from one area to the next area. Okay, so for this project, we are going to need a couple of things because I'm going to teach you how to make the Kumihimo board. If you excuse me, do not have a foam disc like this, that is totally okay because we have lots of ways for you to make this possible. We are going to use some cardboard today. This is just from the top of an old banker's box I've had hanging around the house. I'm sure if anyone's getting Amazon shipments, you can cut down a cardboard box. I really, this is maybe, 10 inches by 6 inches. You really need it big enough to fit the circle. So on our supply list, we do have a downloadable printout that actually gives you, helps when I show it the right way, that gives you the actual diagram of the loom or the board, okay? If you do not have a printer, or if your printer is not working, like my printer most of the time, you can actually do this with just a piece of paper. So if you just have regular, anything from construction paper to printer paper to cardstock will be fine. I have a bowl here. It's about 5 inches in diameter across. You don't need anything huge. If your head fits inside of the bowl, that might be a little too big. But you could see, my Kumihimo board is huge. It's much bigger than this bowl over here. Okay, so I would recommend something about 5 inches in diameter if you do not have a printer and you can't print out our sheet over here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is actually cut out the circle. Okay, and I forgot. I need to finish telling you all the things you need. So we do need scissors. So you guys, any type of craft scissors will work. You do need, if you're going to print out anything like this and or use a circle from a non-printout method, something like tape will be needed or craft glue. Hot glue gun is fine as well. If you have like glue dots, if you're a scrapbooker, that's fine. And then I will have you get a marker if you need to trace like a bowl shape or a circular shape. And then of course we need something like a string or a thread. So I have some yarn here, so yarn will work fine. I also have some embroidery floss. So if you are a friendship bracelet maker already, embroidery floss will work just fine. Baker's twine works really well, or butcher's twine, and you can get creative with it. I've been really into trying to experiment with different ways of making strings. So if you have old t-shirts and you want to strip them down really thin, that could be another way to get your thread or your string that you can use for Kumihimo. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you our board. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead, cut this out like you would cut out any other shape all the way around. All the way around. You guys can see one over here. It's just cutting it. Doesn't matter if it's not perfectly cut out. You want to just have the general circle shape. Don't worry about this middle circle just yet because I'm going to show you once it's attached to the cardboard. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is, I lost my piece of cardboard over here, so you don't even know what's under the desk. So I have my piece of cardboard. I like to glue things close to the edge, just so we're not cutting all the way into the middle. That's going to cause way more work for you. So I'm going to take my craft glue, and if you don't have glue, like I said, you can certainly use some tape and just adhere it to the back of this paper here, just adding some swirly lines. Just kind of getting it all over. A thin layer. Not big blobby globbies. A little dabble do ya, as we say in the crafting world. And I'm going to go ahead and stick it right onto my cardboard. If you are using some craft glue, you might need to let it dry for a few minutes. Sometimes it's nice to stick it under something heavy, like if you have a book or a pan or something like that. Just really making sure it's nice and flat is a good idea. So you can go ahead and stick that off to the side for a minute while I'm going to talk you through making a Kumihimo board without the printout. I'm going to go ahead and take my bowl and I'm going to lay it on this side over here, and we're going to trace the bowl. I'm gonna grab my marker. This is what you're gonna need your marker for. And so in tracing my bowl, I'm using a washable marker, so I'm not so worried about it getting on my bowl. If you have a pencil, that's probably won't get all over anything that you're gonna be tracing. So I just traced it on here. And I'm also going to trace it onto a regular piece of printer paper, just like that. So right on here. And once we trace it onto your printer paper, you can guess, you're going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay? Once you cut this out, I have a piece right over here, you are going to fold it in half, okay? So the way you're going to fold this in half is we're going to bring it down. In half like this. We're going to fold it in half again. So this is now like quartered. So it kind of looks like this skirt shape. And we're going to fold it in half again. And one more time. And I'll show you that one more, I'll show you guys that again. Okay? So it looks like this little triangle. I'll open it back up. This is going to help us map out all the lines that you see on here. If you're not printing it out, you'll get the lines through the folds. Okay? So I'll open this back up. You're going to go ahead and take your circle. If you cut it out, you're going to fold it in half. You're going to fold it in half again, so we quartered it. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4 folds. So you get this little triangle, just like that. And the reason why I'm doing the folds is so you have an idea of where you want to mark your notches when we're doing the Kumihimo, when we're actually learning how to do the Kumihimo. Okay? So once you have the fold marks, you're going to go ahead and glue this onto your cardboard as well. So in all honesty, you actually really don't need to, so I'm just adding a little glue in the circle. You don't really need to make the circle on the cardboard. You can actually just go ahead and whoop, put the circle onto the cardboard and just lay it out flat. And again, you're going to want to take a moment and let this dry. Now some of you are probably realizing I didn't talk to you about the circle in the middle, and that is something I do want to show you real quick. So if you go ahead and continue to cut out your Kumihimo shape, the way you can get a circle in the middle, directly in the middle, is by folding it in half once, folding it in half again, and you see this point up here? I actually will use my thumb and kind of get this like half moon shape. Just kind of come in maybe about a 1/4 inch, and you can go ahead and trace the tip of your thumb. It gives you that half moon shape right there. And we're going to take our scissors and we're going to go ahead and cut out that half moon shape right on the tip of that triangle. And that's going to give you a circle right in the middle. And you open it up. All right, and that's where your Kumihimo needs to work through. It needs this hole to come out through the bottom. If you notice over here, how it comes through the middle in the circle. Okay, so anybody have any questions as we're popping along here? I'm going to take a look at our comments over here. All right, I think we're looking okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and get our Kumihimo board cut out. Now, cardboard can be a little tricky, so if you have some small hands, this is where help might be needed. I'm going to just work my way around over here. Sometimes it's easier just to start to take it out of the main piece of cardboard. So I'm just chopping around it to make it a little easier. So you're not trying to cut out, you know, lots. And then I can get closer to the edges without dealing with a ton of cardboard. And I'm just rotating my way around. You're still doing okay on questions? Great. All right. So here we are, Kumihimo board cut out. Now you're probably wondering, how do I get to that circle in the middle? Okay, this I would highly recommend any adult supervision. What I would do is take a pencil, if it's sharp, you can lay it flat on a surface and you're going to press it into that circle section right here. Use the surface area of your desk or your table or whatever you're working on. Oh, there we go. Oh, I do see some questions. I'm sorry, guys. So, do we cut out the cardboard with the circle? Yeah, so you want to cut the cardboard and the circle together. What you want to do is make sure you glue the board or the paper to the cardboard first. That's my recommendation. Glue the paper to the cardboard first, and then cut it out of the cardboard. So if you notice over here, I've glued the paper to the cardboard, and then we're going to go ahead and cut this out again, okay? And it's totally okay if it looks a little sloppy. This is not about perfection at all. Guys, I mean, the beauty of doing most of this stuff is that it's accessible. So if this doesn't work, great. You can always do it again. So don't feel bad if something is a little wonky or it looks a little off or it's crumbling because maybe you've been, your hands have been messing around with it too much. That's totally fine. So I would recommend just like getting through this with me in the first 30 minutes, and then you can always come back and try it again or teach it to somebody, because there's no better way to really own knowledge until you teach it to somebody. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a hole into the middle of the circle, okay? I'm using my scissors. Again, I would recommend, if you have a sharp pencil at home, to press it down. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys here. If you kind of wiggle it around, and what you want to do is, once it kind of comes through the other side, open it up a little bit. So with your pencil, you can probably push it all the way through, and you just want to squeeze it and make sure you have like a little hole in the center, and that's going to help you actually cut the center out. And again, if this looks sloppy or not like a perfect circle, totally fine. It will still have the same effect. So I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to put it into the middle. And we're going to gently begin. I take the back angle of my scissors. That seems to work the best. And we're going to slowly cut that circle shape out. And you can see my glue wasn't 100% dry, so it did drag my paper a little bit. So it doesn't look great, right? Like it is a little funky over here. That's totally fine. Do not worry about it. You will still be able to use your Kumihimo board, okay? The same thing on the one, if you're making it without the printout, you're going to cut the circle out, and you're going to go ahead and cut the middle circle out as well, okay? Now, for those of you that are ready, you can, with the diagram, we're going to go ahead and snip around each line that's on this diagram, okay? So I take the back corner of my scissors and just gently snip in. This is not about going much deeper than what the line tells you to do. It's about maybe a 1/4 inch, and we're just going to rotate our way all the way around until you've snipped all 32 lines. And it's okay if some are longer than the others. Don't worry about that. It will not affect what your Kumihimo looks like. If you're finding that maybe some are really short, you can always go back in and cut it. Just remember, once you cut deep, it's not going to get any shorter. Okay? So you're going to go all the way around until you're back to the beginning. All right, I've made it almost there. And there we are. So you can see on the back side, I don't know if you guys can see that, the lighting's a little funny. You can see all the snips around the Kumihimo board over here. And whoop. Sorry everybody, I see that I need to slow it down a little bit. So if there's any questions, if I skipped over something, maybe you lost me. Let's see. Are we back? All right, so I am going to go ahead and show you the board without the diagram on it, okay? You tell me if you're not caught up with me. I'm going to go ahead and cut out our board with the diagram. And show you where you can snip for the diagram. All right, so I've cut out my board without any numbers on it. And if you remember how we were doing the folds around the circles, what you're going to do is you're going to cut in about 1/4 inch. My recommendation. All right, I'm going to slow it down a little bit and let you guys catch up while you're working on getting your boards cut out. And remember, if I am going a little fast for you guys, you can go ahead and grab this video afterwards and certainly rewind, fast forward over some of the spots that you were already able to catch up with me on. But I'm going to go ahead and start to notch each of the lines that we made when we were doing the folds. Okay? So you can see each line that I've made. There we go. Are you guys back? Each line that I'm making here is where you can see there's a crease from the folds all the way around. Okay? How are we doing? Are we caught up over here? All right, I got the okay that it looks like you guys are caught up. So, what I'm going to do is work my way around until we have all our notches. The most important thing is we want to do these in increments of 4 or 8. And we're going to go ahead and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We're going to keep going with this. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Okay, so we're going to have 32 lines on here. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Cut in about 1/4 inch. All the way around. So while you guys are working on the board, I'm going to go ahead and get my loom set up, or my board set up. And you guys will be able to, I'll do it quite a few times so you'll be able to catch up. All right? So I'm going to use yarn today, and I have a ball of yarn over here. I measure it. So depending on what you want to make, what's really wonderful is jewelry. So you can certainly make like friendship bracelets. I thought it'd be really cool if you were making friendship bracelets and you can send them off to friends and maybe they can make friendship bracelets for you, and you can really kind of go back and forth with all sorts of fun, decorative wearables with this. What I always recommend is to measure out about an arm span. So I'm using from the tip of my hand to my shoulder. You don't want these incredibly long because what will happen is that you'll get all tangled up. So what the recommendation is, 3 times, the length of your string should be 3 times the size of what you want to make. So let's say you're going to do your wrist. You can measure this around your wrist like 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and that's roughly about what I have. And maybe a little extra for good luck. All right? And what you're going to do is cut. You need 2 colors for this project, okay? And if you don't have 2 colors, that's okay. The design will just look different. So I'm going to use 2 colors. I have the variegated green. It's known as banana berry. If you buy it from Red Heart Yarns, it's the banana berry yarn. We're going to cut 2 strands, the same length, of 1 color, and I'm going to cut 2 strands of a different color so I can get the nice spiral design. again, the same length. So I like to, once I cut my main one, I use that as my reference. I have all 3 lined up, and then I'm going to measure it out so that all 3 are now the same length. And you guessed it, we're going to cut a 4th strand over here. There you go, 4th strand. And they're all roughly about the same size. Again, if one's longer than the other, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out in the end. And you can always add more as you go if one seems to get shorter. I'll show you my board over here. You can see this purple one is a little shorter than some of my other ones. And there's ways to always add extra thread or yarn to what you're doing. All right. So I have my 4 strands. What I'm going to do is fold it in half. So I'm going to have the 2 ends meet up at the bottom, and you'll notice there's a fold at the top, and we're going to make a knot. I'm going to just make a knot. I'm going to twist it around my finger. You see there's an opening right here. I'm going to pull the loop and push it through the opening. This way you have a loop, and the loop will come in handy at the end if you want to tie it or hook it to anything. So I have this loop here. There are different ways to start this. This is the easiest and the best way. So I go ahead and recommend doing this method. And now you're going to end up with 8 strands. So you have 4 of the green and 4 of the pink. Okay. We're going to go ahead and attach this to our loom now. So I have my loom with all the numbers on it. I'm going to use this because it's going to be easier for me to reference where I'm at on this board. You notice there's dots on the 8, the 16, the 24, and the 32. Those are going to help us to set the loom up. What we're going to do is I'm going to take my loop for all my strings and drop it down through the middle. So right now on the back side I have my loops. On the top you can see all my threads hanging out with nothing really going on. So they need a home. And the way we're going to bring them home is I'm going to start with the 8 at the top. So that's like north for me. If you guys can see that, 8, and the 16 or the 24 is at the bottom. And I'm going to start with my pink yarns. And we're going to just set up 1 on one side of the dot and 1 on the other side. And notice that I'm holding my loops in the back so my yarn doesn't get pulled out. So make sure you're holding the loops in the back to keep it stable. And then I just went and put the yarn between the 8s, the dots. Okay? We're going to come down to the opposite side with my pink yarn. I want the same color, and we're going to come over to the 24. And we're going to do the same thing. One strand on one side of the 24 and 1 strand on the other side of the 24. You'll see now that it goes straight up and down and makes a line. And don't worry if you're like, oh, they're kind of twisty. That's okay. We're going to untwist them in a moment. And you could probably begin to guess that we're going to go in the opposite way. We're going to go ahead and put our other color, my banana berry, between the 32 and the 16. Okay, so I'll come over here. I have the 32 and I have the 16. Let's see, how are we doing with questions here? I see a couple coming through. So everyone should have 8 strands. So 4 strands, and then we fold it in half. Okay? And again, these videos will all be available at the end, so you can go back and take a look and reference, how many strands, how we put them together on the board, and you'll be able to get going. Once you get the tool set up, you're going to be able to fly through this, okay? So I have the 16 over here. It's going to go there and on the other side. So your board might not look totally even here, and that's okay. I'm going to begin to position it. I'm pulling it over, so it's pretty much nice straight lines. Okay? Let's questions have my board set up. All right, does anyone want me to restart the loom? I can go ahead and do that again. I see that someone's knot came untied too. So a recommendation is if you have your strands, they're folded in half, loop it around your thumb and your fingers until you get this loop. You want to bring the back end through the middle. So just make sure you have all your strands if you're going to do this. The goal is to have a loop at the top. It will make it easier to tie everything together. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and set the board up one more time. You're going to drop your loop down through the circle in the middle so it comes out the back side over here. I'm going to hold that loop in place. I'm a lefty, so I'm holding it with my left hand. So whatever is your dominant hand you can use. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the two strands and we're going to start at the 8. And I'm going to start with the pink. We're going to go on one side of the 8. We're going to go on the other side of the 8. So I have, it looks like a V, right? On either side of the dot, the right and the left of the dot. We're going to go ahead on the other side. We have the 24. One side of the 24, and then the other side of the 24. Let's see. There we go. We're going to come across to the 32, and we're going to take our other color. So we have our 32 on both sides, and we'll come across again over here. 16. And 16. So you should get this T shape. If you're not seeing it as a T shape with your colors, I like my colors straight up and across from one another. I'm going to pull this over. Try to reset it up again. All right. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how this is done, and then after this, if anyone's still having any trouble, you can certainly reach out to us. We have an email address. It's programs@thehandworkstudio.com, or you can DM us here on Facebook, and we want to make sure you're successful. So I know this is a quick 30-minute craft video, and we're really happy to make sure that everybody gets it, so we can sit with you guys one-on-one. We can add some more visuals around this so that everybody will be able to do Kumihimo while they're hanging out, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm making sure my 8 is in the north and my 24 is in the south, and then we have our 32 and our 16 for the east and the west. I'm going to start with my left side over here. And what's going to happen is left is going to come straight up. There is no crisscrossing in this. So I'm going to come from the 24 and pull it straight up to the notch right next door. So it's on the opposite side of the 7. So if you notice, it was on the 24 and it's coming straight up to the 7 over here. So now it looks like a fork. I'm going to go to the opposite side now on the top of my 8 on the right side. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it straight down to where the 23 is. So I've made my first Kumihimo weave, okay? And you'll notice that I've completed my stitch. I'm going to actually add little arrows to help you guys see what's supposed to happen. Hang on one second. I'm going to give that to you so it'll give you a better visual. I go in a clockwise rotation. Okay, so you notice my arrows are going to show you what way we're going to turn, okay? So we're going to come over to the next color, which is going to be the 32 at the top. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the left side for the 16s at the bottom. The left side up, right side straight down. I just want to give you guys some motion on this, okay? And then we're going to turn it. We're going to do left side up, right side down, turn. It's going to be left side up, straight up, right side down, And let me just go ahead and keep going with the rhythm of this. Right side down, turn. One of the things you're going to need to do is there's tentacles that might grow out the bottom, and you want to make sure you comb them because they can get very knotted as you do this. So always make sure you're combing these out almost after each turn, okay? So we are still here, and we're going to go ahead and continue along. It's going to continue as left side up, right side down, turn. Let's see, left side up, right side down, turn. Make sure you comb out those tentacles. Now, as you're working on this and you're like, something's looking funny, right side down, do not crisscross. Do you see how I did a crisscross over here? You always want to make sure everything looks nice and straight. There's no crisscrossing that should be happening. If you find that you have a crisscross, just readjust yourself. I want to talk to you about troubleshooting for a moment, okay? When things are looking kind of funny or you walk away from this, what do I do? But ultimately, the only step to actually creating the Kumihimo, and you can start to see I'm getting this really cool spiral in the middle, and it's going to begin to grow. So I have my other loom set up over here that you can start to see. Whoop, not this one. You can start to see the more you do it, you can actually see it growing out the bottom, which is always fun. So we're going to go ahead back to, here we are, left side up, right side down, comb out the tentacles, turn. And Kumihimo's known for being a very meditative, calming type of craft. If you're hanging out and watching TV or listening to some books or reading books or someone's reading to you, this is a great way to keep hands busy. That's up and then down, comb it out, turn. Helps to release some energy, like if you're just kind of sitting and hanging out and you don't have anything really to do. Almost becomes hypnotic, so it's up, down, turn, comb out the tentacles, up, down, turn, comb out the tentacles. And you can start to see, the more you're doing it, I don't know if you can see like my little baby Kumihimo over here is starting to take shape, and it's just stacking as these threads crisscross one another. It's just stacking the design up until you get to the length you want it to be. So let's say you wanted to make a bracelet, you would just measure it. So I have my Kumihimo over here, and I would just measure it around my wrist. It actually stretches a lot, so sometimes if you feel it's really not long enough, give it a little stretch, pull the bottom to see if actually the length might be closer to what you're looking for. Now, I do want to talk about when things might get a little funny, like you walk away, you had something to do, and you want to get back into your Kumihimo, and you're like, oh no, where did I leave off? And you're looking at it, and you're like, this just looks like I don't know what's going on here, okay? So if you look closer, you'll notice I call this train tracks and triangles. The yarn that is going straight across, or like two parallel lines almost, those are the train tracks. And then the pink that looks very triangular over here, those are the triangles. The triangles are always the ones that you want to start with. So if you put this down, and I don't remember what number I left off on, it doesn't matter which one you're starting with as long as you're looking at a triangle. Okay, so I would just come over to this one over here, which is between the twos, and I would just continue along the way. Up, down, turn. And you could probably start to see that if you started trying out different colors, you can get very creative with it. If you wanted to try out different color combinations, you can add more threads to this. If you really start to look up Kumihimo, you will see that there are tons of different variations on this design. You can make hearts out of it. You can make it more like speckled looking rather than the swirl that we're doing over here. You can add beads to this, so people thread beads onto the ends of their Kumihimo strands, and they would bring it all the way down to where you would be crisscrossing the yarns all together. So the more you practice this original, process, the more comfortable you get with it, you can certainly get very creative and come up with all sorts of designs and ways of doing it. You can use some thicker threads. These boards do not allow for much thicker threads, to be honest with you, but if you end up with making something bigger, or you find a bigger board somewhere, you can try out thicker threads. You can try different types of strands. Like I said, t-shirts might be really fun to upcycle on for this project if you cut it very thin or stretch it out a little bit. What I would love is if anybody is working on their Kumihimo, that I would love to see the designs you guys come up with, the materials you use, how your boards turned out. Would love to hear how you might be using your Kumihimo when you're done with it, if you've made it into bracelets or if you're going to share it with friends. I think that would be amazing. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Again, if anybody was a little confused, since I know this being live and trying to get a lot of information into a short period of time, I am happy to talk with you further on making sure you're successful with this. We can always add extra tutorials later that are not live that can help give you guys more of an understanding of how the boards are set up or how you can tie all your strands together. But the last thing I do want to show you is how to take your Kumihimo off your board. Okay, so this one's pretty far along. All you need to do is pull the strands out. I'm just going to lift it up. Nothing's going to come undone, so don't worry. Pull the strands off the board. So I've released the Kumihimo. I have all these threadies hanging off the top. Let's see. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie all of our strands together. So I'm just going to wrap it around my thumb until you get a loop here. And you're going to need to pass all the threads through the loop. So you have to pass all 8 threads through. And that might have been some of the trouble if anyone was having trouble with their knots, really making sure all the threads have gone through the loop and pulling it down. And now everything's secure and in place. And what you can do is take these strands, don't cut anything yet. You can use it to tie it around your wrist, or if you want to use your loop and you can hang something up with it, you can certainly do that. But essentially you've completed your Kumihimo and it's now ready to be used. All right, so once again, we'll have all these videos online for you to reference back to. We appreciate you guys hanging in there with us today, and I look forward, we'll be back on Monday with a whole new lineup of crafts for you guys. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day, guys.